Hi, fellow knitters. It's Janet with bddpatterns.com. Thank you so much for stopping by today. In this video, I'm going to show you just how easy it is to knit a one-piece, no-seam poncho. Let's go. Okay, let's talk about what you're going to need to make the Aster knit poncho. And as always, today I am demonstrating this beautiful seamless one-piece poncho in a size small to medium, which will fit up to a 40-inch full bust measurement. First thing you're going to need, of course, are some knitting needles. Now, if you're an advanced knitter or if you've been knitting for a while, if you don't want to use straight needles, go ahead and use circular ones. It's entirely up to you. This poncho is not knitted in a circle, I must state up front. But for me, I always recommend straight needles because beginners have a hard enough time maintaining tension and gauge when they first start out. So to me, circular needles, that's more for somebody that's been knitting for a while, that understands their personal tension, and they can meet the gauge of the pattern. So again, this is a number 10 US, and that is a 6mm for our other friends. All right, you will definitely need a measuring tape, and I have a link for all of these in the video description below. I don't know what the technical name for this is. I call it an end stitch holder, but it goes on your knitting needle. And when you're not knitting, it just makes sure that you don't lose your stitches. A really good thing for this pattern and really any pattern. You don't really need a row counter. If you want to use one, that's okay. But for this pattern, it's done more by inches. Okay. You will definitely need a yarn needle. These bent yarn needles are my absolute favorite. And you're going to need a couple kind of stitch markers here. You're going to need this kind of stitch marker to mark the right side of your poncho. And then you're also going to need 2 needle stitch markers to mark your edge border. Definitely a yarn needle threader. Yep, my favorite. A pair of sharp scissors. My favorite. This is a necklace. It's so cool. And finally, you will need a gauge swatch ruler. And in this video, I'll tell you when to make the gauge swatch. And of course, our yarn. Ta-da! Today we're using Caron 1 pound. And I absolutely love this color. It's Cape Cod. Caron 1 pound is a worsted weight number 4 yarn. And this particular skein is, it's a pound. So it's actually 812 yards or 742 meters. And guess what? You will need 1 skein to complete the size small, medium, and 2 skeins to complete. You might be able to complete the next size with just 1, but guys, I would not chance that. Just have 2 of these. This yarn is not expensive, but just know that you can definitely complete this with 1 skein of this particular yarn on the size that we're working with today. If you want the written pattern for the other sizes large, extra large, 2X, 3X, and 4X, 5X, you can hop on to bddpatterns.com, and the name of this pattern is the Aster. And if you enter coupon buy one get one, and that's BUY one get one, when you check out, you can put 2 patterns in your cart, as many patterns as you want, really, but you have to put 2 patterns in order to buy one get one. And then you'll only pay $5.99, which is the price for each pattern, but you'll get 2 for $5.99. All right. we are going to create, excuse me, a swatch, but it's more like a mini poncho. And this is how I'm going to demonstrate this piece to you. And that's because the piece is so big, but I want you to see up close and on a scale that you can understand all the stitches that we're using in this pattern and the technique of binding off, because we are going to bind off in the middle of our project. All right, go ahead and please cast on 26 stitches. Next, please make 3 rows of 2x2 ribbing. And again, I'm sorry for my shaky hands here. When I first start out, I'm always nervous and I don't know why, but 2x2 ribbing is simply knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, knit 2, purl 2. And you need to do this over all 26 stitches, and you will end with a purl 2. Now that you've got 3 rows of your 2x2 ribbing, we're going to move on to the next technique that we need. And again, there's no shaping in this. In other words, there's no increasing or decreasing. There's no seams, and there's also just 2 simple stitches, your knit and your purl. So what you need to do now is we're going to work on the body. And in order to work on the body has what we call a horizontal 2x2 ribbing. In other words, now our ribbing is running vertically, but now we need it to run horizontally, because this is going to be the bottom of our poncho, and we're working toward the neckline, and then these are going to be the edges. So everything is integrated. There's no seams that are added. There's no borders that are added. It's a really, really cool pattern. So on your first row of the body, you're just going to knit across all stitches. But before you get past 5 stitches, go ahead and knit 5. Goodness sakes. Okay, I've knitted 5. Now go ahead and insert your needle stitch marker after you've knit 5. So continue knitting, and then keep knitting across until you get to the last 5 stitches. And stop, and we're going to do those together. Okay, here we are. We've got 5 stitches remaining. And so now what we want to do is we want to place that second needle stitch marker on the needle and just go ahead and knit 5. And I'm sorry, but now in the last stitch, I want you to, on the knit rows, on the knit ribbing, I want you to knit into the back loop of that last stitch. And that's only when we're on the knit rows, and I'll explain that here in a second. Okay, so that was the first row of our body, and we knitted 5. We put a stitch marker, knitted the remaining, and then put a stitch marker that marked these 5 stitches on the opposite ends. So we're going to turn our work. And we are going to create this 2x2 border over these 5 edge stitches. So in order to do that, we already have 1 row of purl stitches. And again, when we do this, we knit the stitch as it presents itself, just for the first 5 stitches. So we need 2 rows in order to make a horizontal 2x2 ribbing. So now we're just going to simply purl the first 5 stitches, or the stitches that are there, until we get to that stitch marker. There we go. And again, if this looks a little wonky, I apologize, but you got to remember I'm basically knitting in the air and I'm not sitting down, so it is a little awkward. If it looks awkward, I promise you when you're knitting, if you're sitting down, it will not be awkward. If you know how to knit standing up, kudos to you. All right, so here we are at the stitch marker. We've purled 5, and we're just going to slip that stitch marker. It's very important to maintain that stitch marker. Now, we're just going to simply knit across the stitches until the next stitch marker, or we're going to garter stitch. So the pattern, which I will give you later for all the stitches and whatnot, is the first 5 stitches of each edge of the body are worked as a 2 by 2 ribbing, excuse me. Okay, so I've knit across all my stitches, and then the center stitches are just a garter stitch or a continuous knit stitch. All right, we're going to slip our needle stitch marker, and now we're going to do the same. We have 1 row of purl stitches here, so we need to add another one, and that's going to give us our the beginning of our 2 by 2 horizontal ribbing. And yes, I don't know what my dog is barking at, but it's a lovely fall day here in Michigan, and she's just living her best life. Okay, let's turn and go on to the next row. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to keep track of where you're at with these 2 by 2 horizontal borders on each side, each edge. So I can see here that I've got knit two rows of knitting. And to double check, I'm just going to check by seeing the purl stitches. Now here when it's next to the ribbing, the vertical ribbing that we did, it's going to be a little harder to see, but you can see right here that we need to now switch over to purl again, okay? And we need to purl 5. And again, air knitting here, so forgive the shaky hands, forgive the awkwardness. Just going to push through it. And thinking about it, I probably should have demonstrated this with my smaller needles, but I wanted to use the needles that we're using for the project. So, and I had those out. All right, slip your stitch. Okay. Don't grab your tail. Use your skein and go ahead and garter stitch those 16 stitches, which again is just a knit stitch, a continuous knit stitch on both sides. And the cool thing about this is it will be reversible, but we are going to pick a right side. And that's in the pattern. Okay, I just did my 16 garter stitches. Now you can see it's starting to form and starting to look like something. Okay, slip your needle stitch marker, and you can see over here it's the same as the other side. We've got 2 rows of knitting, so we need 2 rows of purling. I don't even know if purling's a thing, but that's okay. So our last 5 stitches are going to be purl. And just here's a hint, just so you know, it should always be the same on both edges. So we purled 5 over here, and we're purling 5 over here. Okay, so when we turn our work, now we can see that we have 2 rows on this side of purl stitches, 2 rows of knit stitches, and again, this is over just our 5 stitches, and then we have 1 row of purl stitches on this side. So what does that mean? We need to, our last row together is going to be 5 purl edge stitches. And again, I don't know why the purl is so whatever in the air, but it is what it is. And thank you for putting up with me on that. All right, so purl your 5 stitches into your stitch marker. Okay, slip your stitch marker, and now just simply knit across those 16 stitches. Remember, we're garter stitching, which is a continuous knit stitch in the center of our work here for those 16 stitches. And then when we meet back here, we'll stop and we'll purl the last 5 together. The other cool thing, and you might be able to see that already, is that it only takes 1 skein of yarn for our 1 skein of the recommended yarn for our small medium size. All right, so let's slip our stitch marker and let's go ahead and let's knit those last 5 stitches. And we're going to do 1 more row together, and then I'm going to turn you loose. Okay, so we're just going to knit those last 5 stitches. Oh, sorry, on the knit rows, don't forget, knit in that back loop on the last stitch. Okay. All right, we're going to turn our work. And now we can see we've got 2 rows of, over here it was knitting, now it's purling. So that means in order to maintain our 2-row pattern, 2 rows of purl, 2 rows of knit, we simply need to do this again. We just need to knit across the stitches, which is awesome. Okay, I split my yarn here, guys, so let me fix this. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so I'm just going to knit again the first 5 stitches, which also means, hello, that we're going to have to knit the last 5 stitches. So knit across, and now you can see that 2x2 ribbing start to form. We have 2 rows of our knit stitch, 2 rows of our purl stitch, and as of what's on our needle, we have 1 row. So go ahead and do those next 16 stitches of knit stitch, and we'll meet back to do the last 5. Okay, here we are at our last 5. So go ahead and just slip that stitch marker, that needle stitch marker, and knit those last 5 stitches. Okay, so when we turn our work, now we can see that we have 2 rows on this side of purl stitches, 2 rows of knit stitches, and again, this is over just our 5 stitches, and then we have 1 row of purl stitches on this side. So what does that mean? We need to, our last row together is going to be 5 purl edge stitches. And again, I don't know why the purl is so whatever in the air, but it is what it is. And thank you for putting up with me on that. All right, so purl your 5 stitches into your stitch marker. Okay, slip your stitch marker, and now just simply knit across those 16 stitches. Remember, we're garter stitching, which is a continuous knit stitch in the center of our work here for those 16 stitches. And then when we meet back here, we'll stop and we'll purl the last 5 together. All right, let's slip that stitch marker and let's purl our last 5 stitches. Oops, yeah, purl. We purl in the front loop, not the back loop. Okay, all right, so here we go. Now I know this is dark, but I know you can see it. So, and oh, see, do you see my mistake? Oops. For some reason, I purled these, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I purled 8 stitches. So I guess this is a good time to talk about, oops, I messed up. What do I do? All right. What I do, and again, please, if you have a more professional way of doing this, you go right ahead and do this, but I'm talking about beginners here. All right, so see that? That's your stitch. Just go ahead and insert your needle that doesn't have any stitches on it right into that stitch. Just hold it up like this, okay, and insert your needle right there. And what you're doing is you're taking out those stitches. And it's not difficult as long as you do it. You caught yourself Thank God you did that now, because if you do it after a couple rows, it's not pretty. Knitting is not as easy to frog as crocheting. Trust me. All right, so let's take out these stitches that I purled instead of knitted. All right, you can see how easy this is. It's not hard. Don't panic. I'm glad that we're going over this because I haven't really made any videos to address boo-boos because honestly, again, I'm a crocheter that knits. So maybe my method isn't, you know, the protocol that professional knitters or people that knit and want to learn how to crochet don't do. All right, so now that we've corrected those knitting stitches, good heavens, I'm just going to fix that by knitting those 5 stitches, do it as fast as I can. That was my garter stitch. Now I'm going to slip my needle, and I forgot where I was, but that's okay. I can see I've only got 1 row here of the purl, so that means I need to purl my last 5. And 5, and we did it. Yes, okay. Now that looks better. All right, so again, here is what we've got going on. We've got the starting of our 2x2 horizontal borders, and that's how we do them. Our garter stitch in the middle, and now we're going to 2. Now for this demonstration, I would like you to do 4 more rows of working your horizontal 2x2 edges and your garter stitch in the center. Do 4 more rows, so that means we have completed our 2-row pattern on the edges. Okay, so now what I want you to do is go ahead and knit 5. So we purled 5, and now we're going to knit 5. Okay. Now I'm just going to give you, just talk for a minute here. I'm going to give you how this is working. What we need to do is we need to work 10 stitches in our pattern on each side, on each edge, because in this demo, our neckline is going to be 6 stitches. And that's what we're going to bind off and we're going to cast on going forward. And that's going to create the opening for our neckline. So here we are. We've purled our 5 because we're maintaining our 2x2 edge pattern. And then we knitted 5, maintaining our garter stitch in the center. I have to be honest with you. I always get a little worked up when I have to bind off in the middle of a pattern, but I'm going to be doing this a lot more. So hopefully I'll be able to better explain how to count the stitches. But again, I explained before in the previous segment that what we are doing is we are working 10 stitches on each side, binding off 6 stitches, in other words, to create our opening. Binding off and counting is a little challenging at first, but as I said, we've already knitted 5. So what we need to remember is this. We need to keep 5 stitches that are completed on our right hand side. And in this case, then we need to have 6 stitches that are missing, gone, bound off, whatever you want to call it. And then we need to have 10 more stitches here on this edge. And in order to do that, go ahead and you've done your 10. So I want you to knit 1 more. Okay. And then knit 1 more. And I'll show you why in a second. So remember, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Even though I've got 12 stitches, okay, on this needle, you think, oh, Janet, that's not right. You messed up. No, it's correct. Because when I bind off these 2 stitches here, this is actually going to count as a stitch on this edge. I know it's a little weird, but just bind off and you'll see how it all works out. So go ahead and do your bind off stitch. And again, see, I lost a stitch already. I'm going to go off and correct this. Well, no, I don't have to. It's okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Oh, I need one more. 12. Okay. All right. So go ahead and again, air knitting people. So just give me some grace here. Bind off that one stitch. Okay. Now I should have 10 stitches if I just cover this stitch right here. That's the stitch I just did. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that is perfect because what's going to happen is I'm going to bind off 5 more stitches, and this is actually going to be the first stitch, and there will be 9 left. So let's bind off again. And I'm not going to make that same mistake twice because I sure don't want that falling apart on me there. So again, bind off as you normally would, bind off naturally. Ignore what's happening with me because again, I'm air knitting here. So now this is the first stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So I have to bind off. We're going to bind off 2 more, and then we're going to recount because I know how many, but I just want you to see how this works because this loses a lot of beginners. It lost me. I really have to tell you that counting these bind off stitches is not as easy as it seems, but once you get it, you get it. All right, so let's see. We've got 5 on this side and we've got 5 on this side. So that means that I need to do one more because this is actually going to count as the first again of these 10. So let's bind off one more and then just go slow and you'll get it. All right. So we've bound off 6. Now we just need to continue with our pattern. And here we are. Now we've got to do a purl for our last 5 to maintain our pattern. Okay, this is what it looks like. We have 10 stitches on this side, 10 stitches on this side, and we bound off 6, and that's what's going to make our neckline. Now, if you were looking at the poncho, the whole piece, obviously this neckline would be quite a bit bigger, but that's how easy it is. It's just binding it off and making a hole for our neckline so that yes, we don't have to sew a seam. All right, so go ahead and turn your work and get ready for what's next. Okay, we are going to continue along with our first 5 stitches, and in this case, we need to knit those 5 stitches, and we need to slip our stitch marker. Now we just need to continue with our pattern, which was our garter stitch, which means we've got 5 more to knit. Yay. Okay, so we've got 5, so we've got a total again of 10. All right, now we need to make up for those 6 stitches that we lost when we bound them off, and that's really super simple. Just go ahead and remember our casting on, and we're just going to cast on 6 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so we've cast on 6. So we just got back. Here we had, before we cast this on, we had 20 stitches on our needle. Now we have 26 again. Okay, so continue with your knitting, and I'll knit that first stitch because that can be a little crazy, but when you do this, guys, hold your tail, kind of hold it pretty snugly and securely because you don't want that stitch to be wonky, okay? And just do that while you're over, I don't know, the first, I would do it for the first 5. I would just hold it tight. Okay, slip your thing, your stitch marker, and then go ahead and we're going to, wait, what are we on here? I got to check this. Yeah, We need one more row of knit here. So go ahead and do your knit. For your last 5 stitches. Okay, now turn your work. And I'm just going to tell you, we're not going to do this. We're going to come together after. I want you to do the first 5 stitches yourself, because this, I don't want to make this look harder than what it is. But because, again, I'm air knitting, that's where we're at. So you know what to do. You've got 2 rows of purl, so you're going to need to knit 10 stitches. All right. And that's going to bring you up to where we cast on. And we're still going to knit across those stitches, but I just want to show you what that looks like. I just knit my 10 stitches, and now I'm at my 6 cast on stitches. And it's just like row 1, guys. It's that easy. But maintain a very controlled tension. Don't let this go loose, because it won't look as good. And since I didn't really add a border around my neckline, you want to do that. You want it to look crisp. So just continue knitting across as you normally would. It's not a big deal. Your 6 cast on stitches. Okay, and maintain a pretty tight tension. Not so tight that you can't move, but tight enough that the stitches will look nice and neat. Continue knitting across these stitches. Okay, turn your work and get ready for our last row together. Okay, as you can see, now we have a little hole in our project, and that's perfect, because that's, if we were making this for a Barbie doll, I guess that would be okay. But you can see here we've maintained the pattern, and that's what's most important. Guys, don't look at this overall, just look at it like in steps. Maintaining the pattern of your 2x2 ribbing first and always. Garter stitching the center, and then maintaining your last horizontal 2x2 ribbing. So here we can see I've got 1 row of purl. So all I need to do now is just simply purl 5. Slip my marker. And continue knitting my garter stitch until I get to that last marker. And remember, these stitches were a little bit tighter, and that's okay. We're going to revert back to our normal tension now. Okay, so I'm just going to keep knitting. Keep knitting. All right, and see, we created a lovely hole, and that represents, again, our neckline. Slipping my stitch and purling my last 5 2x2 5 stitches to keep that pattern maintained. We started out with our 2x2 ribbing. Then after that, that was done vertically. Then after that, we went into our body, or our horizontal ribbing, and the body, which was working a 2x2 ribbing over the 2 rows, making sure that we've maintained that. Then we got up to, after 10 rows, we maintained our pattern here, and then we bound off 6 of the center stitches, and then we maintained our pattern on this side. So we had 10 stitches on this side, 10 stitches on this side, and we bound off 6. Okay. This is how the pattern works. It's super, super simple. You're at the home stretch, okay? So all you're going to do is follow the instructions, which I'm going to give out in the next segment, for the small medium pattern, as to how you want to keep knitting, creating your fabric, which all you're doing now is you're just repeating this thing where you do the 2x2 edge ribbing and then the garter stitch. And then when we get to a certain measurement, all you're going to do is close out with your rows of 2x2 ribbing according to the pattern, and then you're going to do a 2x2 bind off. Excuse me, but go ahead and just add 2 more rows if you're doing this with me of the body, and then add 3 rows of your, 2 rows of your 2x2 ribbing. Okay, we just completed our body rows, those 2 extra ones that I asked, and I decided I'm going to do this 2x2, at least the first few stitches with you together, because I want to show you that you won't need these anymore. So when you're at the end, and again, the pattern is later on in this video, just go ahead now and start working your 2x2 ribbing. And if you've ended on the row that I told you to end on, you should be at where you purled 2 here. So you should be at a knit row for the first 2 stitches. All right, so knit 2, purl 2, knit 2. Okay, just get rid of your stitch marker because you won't need that anymore. Garter stitch. Oh, I'm sorry. Gosh darn it. Nope. We need to continue with our pattern. Okay, so we've got knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, a purl 2. And we're going to continue to do that. And just when you get to that stitch marker, make sure that you know that you've got 1 more stitch, because that's an odd number of stitches at the edge. And just go ahead and let loose on that stitch marker. Okay, so I've got my first row, which is actually the back hemline of my 2x2 ribbing. So go ahead and remember, you want to knit the stitch as it presents itself, and I want you to put 1 more row of 2x2 ribbing, and I'm just going to go off camera and do this because, again, air knitting is starting to get to me. So go ahead and add another row of your 2x2. Okay, we are almost done. I am so excited for you guys. All right, let's turn our work. And now we're going to do a 2x2 ribbing bind off. Okay, so after completing those extra rows of 2x2 ribbing, I can see here that the stitch as it presents itself is a knit stitch. So we're just going to go ahead and we're going to knit. Good heavens. I'm going to try to reconfigure this, my studio, so that I can sit down and knit, because this is getting like too much. Crocheting, I seem to have got it because I've been doing it a lot longer, but knitting for some reason is just not working for me. Okay, so I've knit my first stitch. Now I'm going to bind off. Okay, I'm going to purl just as it presents itself. I'll do a purl stitch and then bind off. Purl again, because that's the stitch as it presents itself. Then I'm going to bind off. Okay, so as you can see, and don't bind off tightly, guys, but don't bind off loosely. Just maintain a comfortable tension. All right, I'll do 2 more so that you can see it. All right, I'm knitting the next one, and I'm binding that off, knitting the next one, binding it off, purling the next one, binding it off, and purling the next one and binding it off. Okay, and there you have it. Just continue binding off. Again, maintain a decent amount of tension, not too tight, not too loose, just comfortable, and you will have completed this pattern. All you'll have to do is just weave your tails. Congratulations, you just made yourself a beautiful seamless poncho.